For those of you uneducated faggots, Splatterhouse is actually a reboot of the 80s arcade beat-em-up series by good old Namco, and it's easily my favorite beat-em-up franchise of all time. Now, the last Splatterhouse title we ended up getting prior to the 2010 reboot was back in 1993. I know math, 17 years? Wow. The reboot had a rocky dev history prior to release, with Namco firing the Bottle Rocket studio halfway through development and working on it themselves with the Afro Samurai team. With inner turmoil clusterfuck aplenty and several delays even forcing them to miss a Halloween deadline, it wasn't looking like a promising vidya in the slightest. The beginning of the story is nearly untouched from the original. Straight man Rick Astley and his trusty cum-dump Jennifer arrive at the foreboding manor belonging to one Dr. Henry West Megadick. What was at first supposed to be a quick interview turns into a kidnapping and gruesome homicide when he sends out his fuckboy demons to take care of the two. Jennifer is now gone, and Ratboy is unable to do anything to save her, aside from drowning in a pool of his own blood with his entrails out. This is where the iconic, influential, inseminating terror mask, voiced by Jim Cummings, arrives to strike a deal. Turn Rick from a fluff boy to a buff boy in order to save his thought in return for a meaty, gruesome, violent, and unapologetically brutal, carnage-filled bloodbath. You know, pretty straight standard stuff. Splatterboot's gameplay is your typical beat-em-up affair, although with a couple of scarce rough spots present that could be hair-pulling for some. There's a light attack you can spam, a heavy that you can charge up in combo, a clunky and miserable excuse of a dodge and roll, a grab, a dash, and a jump button that's only there for the slippery and unnecessary platform sections. Murdering enemies will earn you blood to strengthen Ricky Martin and his moveset over the course of the game. It's all mindless fun really. At times you'll even be able to pull off these wonderfully animated yet extremely repetitive QTE executions to spice things up. My favorite being when you fist this Innsmouth's abortion's asshole deep dish style and rip out his entire colon. Last on the list would be the arsenal of weapons that can be used. There's the trademark, iconic, classic, essential collection of the 2x4, the meat cleaver, the chainsaw, and the door barrel. I can't pronounce that word. On top of whatever enemy's limbs you've ripped off, including your own, to beat shit up with. That's about the only worthwhile shit in the game though. Goodbye, good night, see you later, masturbator. Hablando claro, brother. The first hour of this game is fucking garbage. First thing you do is massacre a room full of spike gremlins in Devil Trigger mode, experiencing the comical amount of bloodshed and even more comical amount of frame drops. After this though, you don't get to use it until coming across the first boss, inexplicably locked yet glowing bright red, always calling your attention for the whole time. By the way, did I also mention this is the only way to regenerate health, like, at all? Yeah. The game does a poor job at explaining how to beat the thems in question up adequately, instead opting for lazy loading screen instructional texts on moves you haven't even unlocked. It doesn't help that feedback when getting hit is almost non-existent, and you don't even have invincibility frames to lessen the blows either. Even when block dodging, a move that isn't even mentioned until half an hour in, there are still no guarantees you'll be able to evade attacks properly. There's also this really cool and really necessary stagger mechanic in which taking a hit too many will result in you losing an arm and making you slower and unable to evade attacks. You just have to run around the room for like 20 seconds until it grows back. There's no reason for this to exist other than to fuck with the player. It ain't even back of the box material either. No shame in admitting I had to step down to easy mode to put up with this bullshit. Wow, these source filmmaker tier nudes of my girlfriend really motivate me to save her. You spent the last of your life savings in quarters to get here. Decimated by gummy worms, eye emojis, anime Leatherface, and some pretty anal churchgoers. Finally beating the game and saving the girl. Entering the final room, listening to the hauntingly melancholic chiptune coming out of the crusty cabinet speakers, you find the promised coochie. But oh no! Right as she finally gets to see you again, she cries out her final words in pain and turns into a mangled, putrid Wolverine wannabe. Jenny is gone now. The only thing left is this violent creature that even has the gall to taunt you by occasionally shape-shifting into her and whimpering some more. As the boss fight ends, she comes back one more time. You get to hold her in your arms one last time before dematerializing from existence. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that these old man arcade games were hot shit when it came to story. But this is on another level of emotional impact in a game. I might even go as far as to say this is my personal numero uno. And I know it's beyond stupid and cringeworthy to hear, but it really do be like that sometimes. Splatboot has nothing though. Aside from Rick wanting to of course keep Buffy safe because that feeling went girlfriend, he is also driven because he cheated on her that one time at that party a year ago and he still feels guilty. Alright, whatever. Jim Cummings does a great job as a Terror Mask, voiced by Jim Cummings. He is really the heart and soul and the only reason worth playing the game. At all. The man has a golden voice that breathes energy into literally any line ever. His way of constantly bullying and making fun of Rick for being all like, "Oh no, my vagina!" is fun as all fuck. It really is something special hearing such an integral voice to your childhood spout out the same raunchy and vulgar shit you do on a daily basis. A+, sparkly smile sticker on his face right there. You deserve it. Give me a little kiss, you motherfucker. That's as far as I go talking about the story or characters though. I mean, there's this.
Yes, the corrupted will spare mankind any further pain, and Lenora and I shall be reunited.
Yeah? Well, fuck you.
No! Fuck you!
There's also a couple of other shit I want to talk about since I'm a terrible writer and I can't really segue smoothly into them. The boss fights, while dull, are pretty cool, all featuring bombastic QTE finishers a la God of War, what I really liked. I also found myself smiling like a new Mel when he looks at his Nintendo Switch, when the game just drops Biggie Man out of nowhere and you have this crazy chainsaw duel. Probably the hypest moment overall.
Show him why we call it Splatterhouse.
OST was also forgettable whenever the guitars weren't playing. It did, however, have the gift of having features from actual bands, shit like Mastodon, The Accused, Goat Whore, and FFDP, just to name a few. I don't have a clue if it's just a PS3 port of this game, but goddamn does it run like shit. All you need to know is that I was seeing dips into the teens. The fucking teens, just by turning the camera around in an empty room. You can pretty much imagine how well the fights went. All around, I was let down by the game, but not entirely though. If anything, Namco should be commended for finally reviving such a prehistoric IP, translating it into the modern era, and hitting it off surprisingly well. It may be jank and desperately in need of some polish, but it still has an undistinguishably solid character attached to it. One that's a lot edgier, gorier, and tongue-in-cheek. Still a disgusting and primarily violent beat-em-up at heart that pays homage to everything the horror genre has to offer. You can see how everyone who worked on the title were hardcore fans of the original games and what it was all about. It's just a really bad shame to see such a messy and troublesome product come out of a titanium solid foundation. If anything though, it's worth a try just to legally own the first 3 games without having to sell your precious cum jars to the Mexican cartel just to afford them.